Space Sheriff Gavan. He's a sheriff. In space. He takes a bite out of crime like his dragon mech does on criminal spaceships. Plot after plot he searches, looking for his father and criminals to fight. These are the spectacular adventures of Space Sheriff Gavan and his brave space crew. In space.
Remember to click like, subscribe, the bell notification, and whatever else YouTube has you clicking on to support us. What's up, everyone? I'm the Kaijino Kami from the Toku and Animation News Network. Today I'm taking a look at Discotek's Blu-ray release of the very first Metal Hero series, Space Sheriff Gavan. In the early 1980s, Toei wanted to start up a new Tokusatsu franchise that new fans could just jump into without having to know the series that came prior to it compared to Kamen Rider and Sentai. As such, they moved writer Shouzo Uehara off of Super Sentai and placed him in charge of their new show, which at the time was called Space Detective Z. Toei then decided to base its title off of a French actor who was popular in Japan at the time, one Jean Gabin, which is where the name Space Sheriff Gavan was derived from. In addition, due to Gavan wearing metallic-looking armor as opposed to cloth or spandex, Toei eventually deemed Gavan to be the start of the franchise known today as Metal Heroes. Furthermore, Uehara and gang decided to hire Battle Fever J and Denjimon's superstar Kenji Ohba as the show's lead hero, with the stipulation that if ratings dropped into single digits, they would cancel the show immediately. This naturally put a huge part of pressure onto Ohba, who had to give it his all in order to make the show a success. The rest, as they say, is history. However, is Gavan truly worthy of its 18% ratings it acquired during its run, or should it have been dead on arrival? Let's watch to find out. The Heroes! While he may have had assistants, Space Sheriff Gavan is a one-man show, and Kenji Ohba does a phenomenal job of relishing in that aspect. As the name of the series implies, Gavan is a space sheriff who reports to the Galactic Union Patrol situated on an alien planet known as Bird.
銀河連邦警察の宇宙刑事ギャバンが特命を受け、地球を目指してバード星を飛び立った。
At the start of the series, he is tasked to protect the Earth from the evil criminal empire Maku and to bring in a rogue space sheriff by the name of Hunter Killer.
地球という星ではハンターキラーと名乗る男に気をつけろ。元宇宙刑事ハンターキラーは我々を裏切ってマクーのメンバーになっている。
To be fair, if you hire someone with the name Hunter Killer, he's most likely going to betray you. Just saying. Anyway, it is also revealed that Hunter Killer is responsible for Gavan's dad's disappearance, who was also a space sheriff and a native to planet Bird, while Gavan's mother was from Earth. So Gavan is essentially the Star-Lord of the Toku world? Gotcha. And like Star-Lord, his mother also died when he was a child. Go figure. All this leads Gavan to trying to be the best cop imaginable as he strives to keep everyone happy, especially children. Upon arriving on Earth, he takes up the name Retsu Ichijoji and gets a job at a horse riding club, not only to help take care of the horses, but to also play with the children that often visit the club. Unfortunately, due to Gavan's first job being a space cop, he will often disappear from the club, leaving its owner in a ruckus.
まったくもう今の若いもんは働くということがどんなもんか分かっとらん。
One thing I like is how he shows his dissatisfaction with Gavan by paying him only for the hours he physically worked at one point.
いくらなんでも給料が3000円なんて。お前が働いた時間を計算すると3000円にしかならんのだ。すぐどっかに姿をくらますしな。
Welcome to Earth Capitalism. The pay sucks, but you never feel like you didn't work a day in your life.
I should also mention that the owner is played by Jun Tatara, who would go on to be Barza in Zyuranger. What makes this even funnier is there's an episode where Machiko Soga plays the monster of the week, and the duo end up having a scene where they dance together.
ゴースケの足の捻挫、首の痛みもたちまち治ってこの通りなのだ。
While on the subject of the owner, two of the kids Gavan frequently interacts with, who are also often used in devious plots, are the owner's grandkids for their parents also died.
どうして死んじまったのかな、父さんと母さん。
Because Japan, kid. Back to Gavan. Ohba does a really phenomenal job of carrying the show all by himself to the point where I can't even see any other actor from the time being able to play the character. Ohba may not be my favorite Toku actor ever, but the man definitely earned his wages. He's extremely talented, charming, and energetic in every scene he is in. I can't say there was a single scene that Ohba did not give it his all, as he never once seemed to have a bad day while the show was filming. And if he did, he hit it particularly well. In order to transform, or rather, electroplate, he calls it a command from his ship that transmits a specialized armor over his body. One thing I do find interesting about this series is that he will instantly transform, and then they will show us his transformation sequence after the fact.
宇宙刑事ギャバンがコンバットスーツを装着するタイムはわずか 0.05 秒に過ぎない。では装着プロセスをもう一度見てみよう。
It's a neat idea compared to what the other series were doing at the time, although the explanation can get tiresome after you've watched several episodes in a row. Still, it was a series originally meant to be watched once a week, so that is more of a minor nitpick than anything detrimental. The majority of his attacks are through hand-to-hand combat, though he can shoot a beam from his fingers and he has a sword that can light up.
ギャバンダイナミック。 To separate Gavan from Super Sentai, Toei made the decision to make his suit silver as they wanted to attract an older crowd with the show, which required them to simplify everything. The suit is striking even though I do find the silver to be a bit generic. I will say that sometimes if you look at promotional shots for the show, it seems like Toei did a bait and switch with the suits between these images and what the show entailed. This is because there were different types of suits created. One was chrome-like, used for the promotional images and special attacks. However, it was too fragile and reflective to be shot in the sunlight, so Toei restricted its use to specialty attacks and posing scenes. The other was done in a matte finish and was durable enough for action sequences. I personally prefer the matte suit, but there is something unique about the shiny version that makes me wish they had found a way to use that one at all times. His main associate is the daughter of the Galactic Union Patrol's commander, a girl named Mimi. Mimi is in love with Gavan and does whatever she can to serve him. She can also transform into a bird.
レーザービジョン、お先に。
I'm not exactly sure why. I understand the planet is called Bird, but does this mean that every citizen can turn into a bird? Can Gavan turn into a bird? Can Quam turn into a bird? Mimi also wears a jewel around her chest at all times, so is that required in order to transform into a bird? I'm a little vexed at this inclination as I don't recall it ever being explained, especially because she just randomly disappears during the last quarter of the show and her replacement, her father's assistant suffering from RBF, Marine, takes over for Mimi and never once transforms into a bird. Then again, Marine really doesn't do jack shit to begin with outside of one instance early on when her and Mimi got into an argument over who was going to help Gavan after he was poisoned.
私が。
Maybe she could transform into a bird and just never did. Well, whatever. Wakiko Kano does a decent job as Mimi, and I do love how oblivious Gavan is in regard to her feelings.
ミミが本当に好きなのはあなたなのよ。
俺か。え？
つまりミミはね、彼を好きになったふりをしてあなたの気を引いているのよ。
あ、難しいんだな。女心って。
God, you're dumb.
Kyoko Nishiro is Marine.
レーザー Z ビーム、ギャバンダイナミック、いずれの破壊力も申し分がないわ。この調子ならどんな敵でも。
Gavan has several pieces of artillery to assist him on his quest to protect Earth. He flies a ship called the Dogoren, which can transform into a dragon-like creature that can be used to fend off Maku ships, along with battling monsters that are able to grow in the Maku space.
It's a neat idea and is executed pretty well, even if sometimes it does feel like Dola is forced into the show because toys, duh.
A dragon, I swear I saw a dragon. His tail lashing, he'll be smashing every shop in town.
Another part of Gavan's ship can transform into a tank called Gavion, while he does also have a drilling machine too. Both of these are actually used pretty sparingly and really only become common in the last several episodes. In fact, I believe Scooper, the name of the drilling machine, was only utilized like 7 times in its entirety.
Tanks for nothing.
Another character who occasionally helps Gavan out is photographer Kojiro Oyama. Kojiro wants to make a name for himself by proving aliens are real.
スペースコロニーのクジラ側にあれ流星が原因じゃありません。学者の発表間違ってんだ。あれは UFO に撃墜されたんだ。UFO?
He will often seek help from Retsu without realizing he is Gavan, though he does have his suspicions.
かしたらあの男ギャバンかな？
誰？
一上手です。うん。あの男ギャバンだ。ギャバンに違いない。うん。ギャバンだ。よー。
や。
I do like Kojiro thanks to Masayuki Suzuki's performance as playing a man who can be serious while also being there for comic relief when necessary.
港の黄昏、逸話のカモメ、ロマンチックだな。
どうしたの小次郎さん、震えてるわよ。
寒気がすんだよ。こんな調子じゃマクも逃げちまうよ。
There's Sakiko Hoshino, played by Aiko Tachibana.
グッバイ、さよなら。それにしてもよく似ているわ、ボイサーに。
Sakiko's parents were killed by hunter killers. Her father had developed a new type of fuel that could replace gasoline, and Maku wanted it for nefarious purposes. Gavan's father, Voicer, ended up adopting her as he was close friends with her dad. Speaking of whom, Voicer is portrayed by none other than the legendary Sonny Chiba.
増幅システムの設計図はわしの記憶の中にはなかったんだよ。だからいくら拷問されても喋りようがなかったわけさ。
Chiba was a huge star across many movies and founded the Japan Action Club, a group of stuntmen Toei practically used in every production, which is also where Kenji Ohba got his start from. Kill Bill fans should most definitely recognize Sonny Chiba.
Konnichiwa?
こんにちは。Please repeat.
Konnichiwa.
Perfect. Good.
Oh, and look who else was featured in the movie.
酒？真っ昼間から？昼でも夜でもいいだろう。めったに客が来ねえんだから。このアホ、ドアを。なんで俺がいつも酒運ばなきゃいけねえんだ。
There are a few other characters or actors who make their appearance throughout the show, such as fan favorite Hiroshi Miyauchi, who plays a space sheriff by the name of
Alan.
Sorry, couldn't resist. Princess Tenko guest stars in an episode. I find this hilarious given she was last featured in Denjimon. I think it would have been neat if there had been some funny comment of her asking Gavan if they had ever met each other before because he looks quite familiar or something. Battle Francis Yuhei Kurachi makes an appearance as a thief.
"とぼけるなよ。石黒はマクーだ。お前なんか虫けらのようにひねり潰されてしまうんだぞ。
お兄ちゃん。
帰ってくれよ。俺たち忙しいんだ。帰れよ。
Lastly, Gavan's boss Kom is played by Godzilla vs. Gigan's Toshiaki Nishizawa.
おいおい、ギャバン。いくらなんでもそいつは乱暴すぎるよ。
じゃあ別れさせるんですね。
待て。それじゃ耳がかわいそうじゃないか。
The villains. Maku are a threatening lot, albeit very underdeveloped. They are led by Dawn Horror, whose voice depends on what episode you are watching. In the first several episodes, you will hear Shouzo Uehara's voice coming from him. Afterwards, Daidamin's villainous Emperor Takeshi Watabe. Regardless, Don Horror is pretty much the equivalent of wallpaper. He's wallpaper in the literal sense. He's nothing more than a painted statue with someone's arm sticking through the wall and a head inside the mouth of his masthead. If there is one positive to say about him, it is that he's at least ahead of Satan Agos if I were to ever compile a worst Toku villain leader list. Next up is his field general Hunter Killer who, as I mentioned earlier, betrayed the Galactic Union Patrol to join Maku.
ギャバンめは今毒蛇モンスターの毒に侵され地獄への道を一歩一歩歩いております
At first, given he was the one responsible for Voicer's disappearance, you would think he would become the main rival to Gavan. But nope, we don't get any of that at all.
ボイサーはここにはいない今頃地獄の中でもがき苦しんでいるだろうこの町はお前を抹殺するために作った罠の町なんだ
He barely even interacts with Gavan outside of a few taunts every now and then, and that's it. He's hands down the most wasted villain of the entire show.
何者だ
The last third of the series brings us to Don Horror's son Sandorva, played by Return of Ultraman's Ken Nishida.
そうですか我々の力作は今までのはほんのプロローグプロローグそうこれからが本編
Like with Hunter Killer, Sandorva arrives and does practically nothing during his entire tenure. He only fights Gavan twice, and both times he has to have his mother, the witch Kiba, there to assist him because he can't do it on his own. I am putting a very heavy emphasis on Kiba being a witch, as she is played by male actor Noboru Mitani.
可愛い息子を殺してなるものか妖術でギャバンを金縛りにしてやるその隙にやめろ
Sandorva loves to bullshit you and has nothing to show for it. Even in one episode where he boasts about how he can easily take out Gavan without his father's help, he has a monster do the work for him, and then complains at the end of the episode when his father didn't help him.
自分の力でやると言って出て行ったのだ助けなど無用アンドルバよくもおめおめと戻ってきよったの今度こそ
残念なのはドンホラお前が魔空空間を作らなかったことじゃよ
Speaking of which, don't ask me how Don Horror and Kiba had a child together. They just did.
Ignorance is bliss.
Beyond them, the grunts are known as crushers, and there is a bird-looking girl that is always at Don Horror's side for some reason. She also appears to have some interesting kinks. You know what? I want to keep this review PG. So let's forget about it. The monsters of the week are an interesting lot, at least in concept, not execution. To start, there are a bunch of spy soldiers known as double men and double girls. They can take on the guise of anyone they want for whatever reason they desire.
Space Magazine 社編集長
Space Magazine 社秘書
The monsters are a bunch of forgettable brainless brutes known as BEM monsters.
You'll soon find your puny weapons are no match for my armor!
Translation, boring.
At episode 13, a scientist is forced into building a device that can be used to fuse the Doublemen and BEM monsters together, creating the Doubler monsters. Congratulations! You have just created the Triceraton race. Due to this aspect, the Doubler monsters are all highly intellectual beings who can turn into humans if necessary and partake in the majority of the episode's plots rather than just being there for Gavan to fight at the end of an episode. And fortunately, most of them are still forgettable with a few exceptions, such as a spider monster who is kidnapping women to turn into monsters, the aforementioned monster played by Machiko Soga, and this turtle dude, who I will explain later on in the review as to why he is memorable, and it's not exactly for the best of reasons. And that's about it, as the monsters of the week are quite lackluster.
Sounds pretty lame.
Towards the end of each battle, Don Horror has his minions use a device to send Gavan and the monsters into a black hole-like subspace known as Maku space.
マクーのドン・ホラーは軸を操作して一種のブラックホールを作り出すことができるのだ。
Maku space increases the strength of the Maku, which means Gavan really has to up his ante if he wants to be able to defeat the monsters. It's a pretty cool concept despite overstaying its welcome, since it is used in almost every episode.
You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination.
The effects and music. One of the biggest reasons Gavan exists is to utilize the most recent special effects available at the time. The soundtrack is not too bad either. The soundtrack was composed by Michiaki Watanabe, who did a fantastic job of producing a really catchy score with numerous tracks to enjoy. If I had anything negative to say about it, it's that I wish he had featured a bit more technological tones that were prominent throughout the decade compared to the 70s aesthetics Watanabe was known for. I would have loved to have heard music like this during a fight scene. Nevertheless, the soundtrack rocks. The opening theme is quite catchy and helps set you up for the episode you are about to endure. I am not the least bit enamored by the ending theme, the Starry Skies message, as it's slow. Both are sung by Akira Kishida. As for the effects, they are splendid. Most of this is all thanks to the Maku space, which features a variety of background themes for Gavan to fight in depending on what the Monster of the Week's plot revolved around. The spider doubler I talked about earlier allowed Gavan to confront the creature in a room full of cobwebs and the like, while one monster he battled had the duo fighting on a painting of skulls through the use of CSO. My favorite might be the one where they are standing on guns that are firing. There were also fights that took place in a mountainous area where the production team replaced the actual sky with a fantastical one. Adding to this is the impeccable stunt work that would be a precursor of what was to come from this franchise. These include scenes of Ohba running away from a monster who shot out a spiraling barrage of sparks, an underwater fight, swinging off of buildings, and so on. Camera work is just as detailed. On the other hand, there were times when Ohba would get chased by a boulder as if he were Indiana Jones with less than stellar results. While not every effect was able to be accomplished in success, the vast majority of them were, which is where the show really outclasses its other Toku brethren, the episodes. For the most part, Gavan is a fun adventure to journey through, but do know, it has very little in the way of plot. It's very formulaic, and there are only 7 episodes of the entire show that revolve around its central plot. Still, the show was a technical marvel and ended up becoming something truly special, even if it isn't the most plot-driven series. Ohba brings in a solid performance that is unmatched by many others in his quest to find his father. I do wish this plot had been weaved into the narrative a bit more than it was, especially with Tsukiko, who would disappear for long stretches and rarely, if ever, mention voice her again beyond her introduction. I do love how many recurring characters there were, as the camaraderie between Gavan and all of his friends and associates helped drive his undercover persona. The episodes themselves were highly entertaining, sometimes very suspenseful.
Gavan, それではエンジンをかけていただこう。
I can't say there were any episodes I outright hated, but there were a couple that were weaker than its brethren. Alternatively, I had several contenders for being my favorite. Another issue with the series, however, is that by the end, it did feel like the writers were struggling to come up with a new plot idea as they started to rehash ones from earlier on in the show, which included my favorite episode, the one titled Illusion, Shadow, the Maku City. The Maku are celebrating the anniversary of the creation of the Beast Planet by trying to sacrifice Gavan. Thus, Gavan is transported into Maku space where he is constantly under attack by a variety of Maku's henchmen and must battle his way out to survive. It is pretty much just a series of battle sequences, but it has a lot of weirdness to it as we get to see a variety of interesting visuals, superb fight choreography, and a variety of costumes for the Maku to wear. It's the only episode where you can watch Gavan fight clowns, furries, and cosplayers of Raiden from Mortal Kombat. Oh, and it has a creepy little girl song. This episode is so good that Toei redid it in episode 41, but had Gavan trapped in Maku space via an hourglass Kiba created. As for my least favorite episode, it is the 18th episode, the Otohime Contest, Dragon God Palace Panic. It's based on the tale of Taro and Otohime, so the monster of the week is the turtle doubler I mentioned a bit ago. He is obsessed with Otohime and is kidnapping women to see who can fit into her shoes a la Cinderella.
この靴を履いてごらんなさい。この靴が履けたら乙姫様になれるのです。
He's creepy and comes off as nothing more than a pervert. Way more than I'm sure the writers intended.
乙姫様、ずっとお探ししてたんですよ。私と一緒にさ、流入場へ。乙姫様。セニョリータ、ベサメムーチョ。おとなしく私についてきてください。
Of course, he's not the only one who comes off creepy in this episode, as Kojiro is on the beach at the beginning of it, just randomly taking pictures of girls on the sand without even asking them if it is okay for him to do so. He just does it.
おお、びっくりしたな。びっくりすることないんじゃないの。おお、これは素晴らしい。
I think this episode could have used a character like this.
For the record, that was self-defense.
Anyway, back to Turtle Doubler. While he is kidnapping girls, he also somehow created a time machine Danhora wants to use to obtain the jewels from Otohime's Dragon Castle, or something? The plot is quite a mess with way too many subplots going on for its 22-minute runtime, and as I said, Blue Turtle Doubler just comes off as some perverted scumbag rather than an actual threat. It does have that awesome underwater fight and some cool camera angles though. The movie. Gavan didn't actually have a movie when it first came out. Toei decided to make one for its 30th anniversary as they wanted to celebrate the return of Gavan. Let's just say this movie blows. Two astronauts disappear on a mission to Mars, leaving their co-crushed childhood friend to fend for herself in their stead on Earth. It turns out the dual ship exploded in space and both were separated, with one being pulled into a black hole while the other got rescued by the Galactic Union Patrol. You can probably figure out what happened from there, as this movie follows every freaking Toku and anime trope imaginable when it comes to this sort of plot. Anyway, the friend who was rescued by the Galactic Union Patrol, Geki, trained to become a space cop and ends up becoming the newest Gavan. An evil masked villain known as Brighton wants to resurrect Danhora and the Maku. He teams up with a witch wanting revenge for the death of Kiba and a few Doubler monsters to achieve this goal. I bet you can't guess the identity of Brighton.
Toya.
What? The movie is downright boring. And the 82 minutes you spend watching it will make you wish an airplane would crash into your home to release you from your hellish torment. What sucks even worse is that the movie starts off with a pretty kick-ass night battle featuring some marvelous effects. It all goes downhill from there as the rest becomes a dull, unending bore fest with subpar visuals. Hell, Geki's assistant Shelly, who is played by Shiken Yellow herself, has a garish fashion sense that describes this movie in a nutshell.
Wow, you look hideous. Yeah, that's like the most ugliest dress I've ever seen.
The only part of the film that has any value to it is watching the old Gavan beat the crap out of the new one, as Ohba once again brings his A game to such drivel. Even Shider and Sheravan are not spared the embarrassment of this detrimental dissonance.
Sherivan, crash! Shider, blue flash!
The Blu-ray. Discotech has provided us with one of the best Toku Blu-rays ever, especially at the time. Here's the cover to the slipcase, spine 1, spine 2, the backside. Then you have the disc cover, spine is the same, back is the same, discs are in trays, and some artwork on the backside, and then 4 discs for the show, with 10, 12, 11 episodes on each, and a ton of bonus features. There is not a single flaw I have to say about this one. The audio is immersive and problem-free, the video quality is quite stunning. Yes, there are some composite shots that look faded out or blurry, but that's just the way the show was filmed.
軸を操作して一種のブラックホールを作り出すことができるのだ。
I highly doubt Toei would ever be able to make those look better. I noticed no rainbows, compression, or anything of the like. The subtitles are accurately translated with dialogue subtitles at the bottom of the screen in yellow font. Song subtitles during the episodes are in the upper left-hand corner in a blue font. Opening and closings are fully subbed too. To make it even better, there are several bonus features. Aside from the premiere trailer, there's a full-on essay about the origins of the show with some pretty nice information. There's a 90-minute interview with Ohba and his cohorts. Lastly, a gallery full of photographs. I really enjoyed my time with Gavan. The effects are absolutely spectacular, and as I've said a few times, Ohba does a phenomenal job of holding the show on his own. There are some drawbacks being the first of its kind. Nevertheless, Space Sheriff Gavan is definitely worthy of a solid 4 out of 5 grown-ups in spandex. If you have never seen Gavan, now is the time to do so. This Blu-ray is phenomenal and the show is well worth your time and money. Just avoid that horrible garbage of a film. Until next time, bye.
Because I got high. La da da.